Is your pool ready for the freeze? If not, I'm going to show you how in this video. Hey guys, my name is Scott Davis, and I'm the owner of Dynamic Custom Pools here in League City. As you probably know, we have a pretty bad freeze coming in the next few days, at least bad for our standards. Um, and it's going to get down into the 30s, definitely, and probably into the 20s in a lot of areas. And what that means is that if you have a swimming pool, it's going to be susceptible to damage in the plumbing, in the heater, the filter, your valves, and we want to do everything we can to avoid that. So I want to go through the steps with you today about how to do that to make sure you don't end up with a bunch of costly repairs like we probably did in 2021 if you weren't aware of the procedure to make sure that your pool is ready for these frees to begin with. It's all fairly simple. You just have to make sure that you do it right. So let's go through those steps one by one. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your pool has the right amount of water. Want to make sure that the water level is at least halfway up the skimmer line so that when the pump is running and it's pulling water into the skimmer, there's no chance of it sucking air into the line and losing prime. It's a real problem if you have a variable speed pump or anything with a computer on it, which almost every newer pool does, and a lot of the older ones now do too, because they phased out the single speed pumps and everybody's moving over to the variable speed pumps. Those pumps are designed to shut down whenever they detect any kind of air in the system. And they do that to protect the internal components, the motor, and the bearings, and make sure that it doesn't overheat. And that's a great thing whenever you don't have a freeze. But when you have a freeze, what we worry about is once you lose prime and the system shuts down and it can't run anymore and it can't circulate the water anymore, you now have stagnant water inside your pipes, inside your filter, inside your pump, and inside your heater and your valves and everything else. What happens is whenever the water is stuck inside there and it's not able to circulate, it ends up expanding about 10 to 15% inside of whatever space that it's in, and it ends up cracking. So you end up with cracks in your plumbing, you end up cracks in your filter, your manifold and your heater can crack. And those are all really, really costly repairs. And all we have to do is make sure that we have our water level high enough and that the system continues to circulate throughout the entire duration of the freeze. Now, let's talk about ways to make sure that it's going to circulate properly. The simplest system that we have is going to be just a simple intermatic timer switch. That's just an on-off with a single speed pump. We're seeing less and less of those these days, but we do have a lot of people in our area that have those. And those are kind of the easiest ones to deal with if you have to do it manually, because you go out, you turn the pump on, you let it run for 24 hours throughout the entire duration of the freeze, and you're good to go. You just have to make sure to take off those little timer switches. They're in there that tell it when to turn on and off. They're just two little switches in there. You take those off, turn the pump on, let it run. Same thing if you have a Polaris booster pump that has to circulate water as well. You're going to want to take the timer switches off of that, turn the pump on, and let that circulate for 24 hours a day. Same thing if you have any kind of a water feature. So just keep in mind, you want to make sure that every pump that you have is running continuously for the entire duration of the freeze. Now, if you have a newer system with a smart pump or anything with a computer on it or a control panel, chances are that that's going to have an internal freeze protection built into it. And what that means is that when the ambient temperature outside gets down below 38 degrees, the system automatically turns itself on at the right speed to make sure that everything circulates and can't freeze in the lines. And so what you'll see is whenever the temperature starts getting low, you look outside and it's past time that your system should be running. You'll see your water features on, you'll see your water moving, maybe a Polaris moving around. And that's because the automatic freeze protection has kicked on. Now, if you know that you have that automatic freeze protection and you don't see the system turn on, then you kind of have a problem. And what you're going to need to do is go into your app or go out to the panel, get into the freeze protection settings and make sure that it's set properly. If it's not set properly, go ahead and set it the way it's supposed to be. You can get a hold of your pool builder. You can text me. You can DM me. You can send me an email, and I'll put all my contact information at the end of this video. I'm here to help. Feel free to reach out. So you want to make sure that those are set and running properly. Now, if it's set right, it's set to run at 38 degrees or below. You have it to the right RPMs, which is usually about 2,500 RPMs. If you all well it's set properly and it's still not running, you're going to need to make it run manually. So what you'll have to do is if you have a control panel, typically there's going to be auto service and timeout. Timeout's going to run for 3 hours and then shut itself off. So you're going to want to put that into service mode and then turn all of your pumps on. You don't need to turn the lights on. Just make sure all your pumps are running properly. Your water feature, your Polaris pump, and your main filter pump are running continuously for 24 hours a day for the entire duration of the freeze. And what the service button does is that will tell the system to do whatever you tell it to do until you tell it to do something else. And so until you go out there and tell it to turn the pumps off, it's going to run continuously. So once it's running, you don't have to go out there. You don't have to do anything else with it. It's going to do what it's supposed to do the entire time. So that's really it in terms of what you need to do to make sure that the system circulates properly. Now let's talk a little bit about what you shouldn't do. What a lot of people think they need to do is they'll go out there and they'll turn their heater on and let that run to try to keep the water warmer. It's completely unnecessary. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So as long as the water's running, you don't need to put the heat on the pool. Now you can do it. It's not going to hurt it if you do heat the pool or heat the hot tub if you want to use it. It's a lot of fun to go out there when it's 35 degrees and get in the hot tub. It's nice to do that, but it's not necessary to run the heater at all. The other thing that's not necessary is to cover the equipment. As long as the system's running, don't need to put blankets on the heater. You don't need to put blankets on the filter, the pumps, or anything else. Leave it exposed to the elements. Let it run like it's supposed to, and you don't have to worry about it. I promise. Now let's talk about the biggest danger that we face. And we saw a lot of this in 2021 when we had the major freeze here in Houston and it was frozen for like 2 weeks. And the biggest issue we had there was everybody lost power. When you lose power, there's nothing you can do to run your system if you don't have a standby generator or any kind of a power wall or anything like that. That's when things get real sketchy with your system, when you need to take some extra steps to ensure that you have the best chances of it not having any major issues. What you're going to want to do is you want to open the whole system, right? So you want to make sure that all the pressure is relieved out of the system. So the first thing you're going to do is on top of your filter, there's a filter pressure gauge. And that usually turns. And what that is a air relief valve. So you're going to open that air relief valve and you're going to hear it suck air. You're going to leave that open the entire time. Second thing you're going to do is on the bottom of your filter, there's a nut that screws in. That's a drain nut. You just get under there with a little bitty wrench, get one that's big enough and just loosen that up. And remember, it's upside down, so it's going to turn the opposite way of what you think. Don't tighten it on accident, because if you crack that housing, it's going to cause you a lot more problems than it's worth. Make sure you turn it the right way. Make sure that you unscrew it all the way and let all the water drain out of it completely. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the lids off of your pumps. And so your filter pump, any water feature pumps, or your booster pump. Your booster pump won't have a filter lid, so ignore that part. But anything that has a lid on it, remove those. One thing I like to do is, if we do have that issue, go to the heater. If you have a heater and you have unions that screw the plumbing onto the heater union, you're going to want to unscrew those and kind of push the filter away just a little bit from that plumbing so that the water can come out of it, and the water has somewhere to go as it expands. Once all those things are done, once you have the heater disconnected, your air relief valve open on the filter, your filter pumps open, all that's good to go. That's really all you can do. And that's not going to guarantee that you're not going to have a problem. That's not going to guarantee that nothing's going to break, but that is going to give you the best possible chances of making it through without there being any kind of major costly repair. Now, one thing that people forget about a lot, especially if you have an autofill, which is usually connected to a spigot somewhere, either on the side of the house or on the back of the house or by the equipment, you need to make sure that you wrap that fill line with insulation, tape, towels, whatever you can get your hands on. People forget about that part because it's not always right next to the equipment, and they end up having a fill line crack. Now, that's a pretty easy repair comparatively to the rest of them, but there's just no reason to take that chance. Find that fill line if you have it, wrap that thing up with some towels or some insulation, and then rub a bunch of duct tape around it, and that'll take care of that problem for you. And that's it. It's pretty simple once you understand the steps. All you have to do is maintain your water level, let your system run for the entire duration of the freeze, and if you have a power outage, make sure to take your lids off the pump, open up the filter gauge, unscrew the filter plug at the bottom, undo the unions and relieve as much pressure out of that system as possible. One thing I didn't mention earlier was if you do have a freeze or a power outage, you can go ahead and put blankets over the equipment to kind of help keep it warm a little bit. I wouldn't put any kind of space heaters in there or anything like that. You do risk a fire, you risk melting the plastic components, but putting some blankets on it and kind of duct taping it down there to protect it from the wind and the rain, that's not a bad thing. It's just once the power comes back on, you want to make sure to take those off because you don't want to risk the pump overheating, the filter, the heater turning on and causing a fire or anything like that. If you have any questions, hit me in my DMs, shoot me a text. You can send me an email. However you want to get a hold of me, I'm here to help. I'm here to answer any questions that you have. I'm happy to do it. Just make sure to reach out. I just want to make sure that you end up with the best chance possible of not ending up with any kind of damage in the pool. Thanks, guys.